It's time to sit back, relax, and listen to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life will inspire, motivate, and empower you. Live your best life now. Listen, learn, think, and decide. Change your attitude, change your life. And now, here's your host, Joan Herman.
Welcome to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. I'm Joan Herman. Thanks for tuning in. Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life brings you interviews with some of the most inspirational and influential people in the world. It's our goal to educate and empower you so you can live your best life now. Thank you for taking time for yourself, and thank you for letting us be a part of your life. We have another great show for you today. It has been reported that children spend more than 6.5 hours per day on screens. 93% of teen Facebook users share their real name. Sexting is a ranking concern for U.S. children, and 1/3 of students between ages 12 to 17 have been victims of cyberbullying. Children face real dangers online, but how can parents protect their kids without isolating them from the reality of our digitally connected world? Joining me today is Will Geddes, one of the world's leading security specialists. Will coaches parents on the risks of internet dangers and offers practical advice so that children can be engaged in modern media while remaining safe. Will is a regular commentator and analyst for media including CNN, NBC, BBC, and Newsweek, and he's the author of the book Parent Alert: How to Keep Your Kids Safe Online. Welcome, Will. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for the invite, Joan.
So, Will, when you hear words like cybercrime, sexting, cyberbullying, phishing, cyberstalking, grooming, nude selfies, these are activities that were not part of my world as a child. But today, it's a very different story. Our kids are exposed to these scary activities on a daily basis, and they're not equipped to handle these realities. So I want to thank you for being here because this is such an important conversation that we can have. So as parents, we can't shield our kids from online dangers if we don't know what they are. Can you give us a general understanding of what is going on in the digital world that our kids are being exposed to?
Well, of course. I mean, certainly in terms of the digital life and the virtual life that we all are increasingly inhabiting, this is, in many regards, still an uncharted waters for most of us in terms of the kind of risks that we can potentially be presented with, the type of content and material that we might not actively necessarily seek out, but we can come across accidentally or just purely by chance. And in many regards, although we want to place as much trust as we can on the developers of apps and the builders of social media sites, the internet as a whole, unfortunately, still doesn't have the degrees of controls that each of us might necessarily want, but more importantly, that could ideally protect children from A, the types of content that they could potentially see, but B, the kinds of threats that they could be exposed to. And those threats now make up an increasingly wide spectrum.
Well, there were a couple of terms that I threw out, and I want to just run through some of them, and if you can give us a very brief explanation of what they are. So, cybercrime, what is that?
Well, cybercrime will be fundamentally any kind of crime which could seek to extract or extort money from you, or by duplicating or recreating your identity to use your identity as a proxy to perpetrating various crimes on the internet. Now, that could be defrauding other individuals, it could be grooming other individuals, but it's fundamentally crime that falls within the virtual cyberspace as opposed to what we might conventionally see in the real world. So anything from robbery through to fraud to extortion.
Now, you just mentioned the word grooming. What is that?
Well, grooming is the generic term that is used more often than not when there are predators who are seeking to actively target children for some kind of nefarious activity. And unfortunately, in the vast majority of those instances, it will be with some sexualized nature. Now, grooming is incredibly insidious because it generally constitutes the process of cultivating, indoctrinating, and coercing a child over a period of time through very, very, very subtle means. And many of the predators that are grooming children and minors online will use such subtle tactics that the child can quite often not realize what is actually happening until they have been enveloped, if you like, by the predator into either sharing information, compromising photographs, or even in the worst instances, even physically meeting with the groomer in the real world.
Is there a common way that opportunists prey on children? Is there something that parents can be looking for?
Well, one of the things that I talk about quite extensively in this book is how valid will this book be in, say, a few months from now or even a year from now? And where I frequently mention within the book is about your protection, your safety being a defense in depth. And what I mean by that is that although technology can evolve and advance incredibly quickly, and your child might be on one app this week and then on a brand new app next week, there are still some fundamental modus operandi that the criminal, the extortionist, the groomer for that matter, needs to be able to follow to be able to compromise you as an individual or the child into giving up personal information, enabling access into a private account, or being susceptible to some degree of extortion. And the way that I best describe it is to say that you or the child, for that matter, is the key to the house. And if the house is full of your valuables, your private information, your personal data, whatever means or process that the criminal or the threat has to approach by, they still have to come through that door, which is protected by you. So although one talks about hacking more often than not in a technical sense, in many regards it is about human hacking. It's compromising the person and coercing or maybe even manipulating you to compromise the security values and common sense that you might not normally sort of drop in a real-world situation, that you would be duped into believing is worth dropping. So whether that be that there is some reward against you providing certain information, whether that be entering your personal information, or whether it be by sending a compromising picture.
So then, Will, how do we keep the door to our house shut? What is cybersecurity, and how can we practice it on social media?
Well, when the publishers first came to me with the book, they said, Will, what we want is something that is going to cover children between the ages of 7 and 17. When I looked at the actual demographic of the 13 to 17-year-olds, the 7 to 17-year-olds, I explained to the publishers that what we can talk about here is best practice. So it's everything from the moment you set up that brand new device that you've taken out of the box, what account name do you put on it, what passwords you put on it, the two-factor authentication, VPN, and various other things that I'll talk about in the book, which are very easy to put in place, but will control your digital footprint from the outset. But many children will already become incredibly capable and conversant with technology that trying to integrate that best practice is going to be a challenge. But where the book, if you like, serves its purpose is more as crisis management guide in the event of when things actually go wrong, which is more often going to be probably the case for that 13 to 17-year-old age group.
So, Will, when something does go wrong, what is something that a parent can do?
Well, there are lots and lots of things you can do. And the first thing that I would always wish to reassure parents, and I've dealt with a number of cases over the years where parents have come to me in absolute desperation to say, what can I do? My child has done this, that, or the other. The first thing is about talking to your child and how to communicate with them in such a way that the child doesn't feel that you're prying and you're spying on them, but also that they can come to you without judgment, without recrimination, because children will feel that if they do come to the parent, there is that embarrassment factor to start with, that they may have been caught out on something which in many regards was probably pretty straightforward and was just common sense that they didn't do, but they did, and that the parent can actually help them and advise them and work through that problem. And then in the book, I talk about everything from how you as a parent can actually, with the child as teamwork, manage that situation to recover it, and all the sources and resources that you can go to that can assist you with that, even right through to the really serious situations where it makes very clear definitive thresholds of when you need to even potentially alert law enforcement, and then how you can work with law enforcement to best enable them to assist and support you.
The book is Parent Alert: How to Keep Your Kids Safe Online. Will, if our listeners would like to get more information, where can they go?
Well, they can go to Amazon, and they can go to many reputable online booksellers, and they can also go to our Instagram account, which is parent_alert, where we are answering a number of people's questions. We're trying to post up some interesting content. And if any of your listeners do have any particular questions, please, they can send a message through there, and we'll do our best to try and answer that for them.
Well, thank you so much for being here. As I said in the beginning, it can be a scary world, but by following your advice and implementing security measures, we can avoid potential risks while reaping the many benefits of a connected society. So thank you for being here and sharing with us.
Well, thank you for the invite, Joan. It's been a pleasure.
This is Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Stay with us. We'll be right back.